What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Living Blessed, the podcast. I'm your host, Joevan J. Palmer, and as always, we have amazing guests on the podcast sharing transparent and vulnerable moments. I got my guy, who I've known for some years now, who I'm inspired by, whom I thank because he gives back to children, and that's kids always have a special place in my heart, man, because I've always worked with kids for a long time, man. So, DreTavious, my brother, introduce yourself. I gotta stop telling people's names so y'all can introduce yourselves.
I feel that.
Yeah, so let's y'all, So introduce yourself. Tell people who you are.
Okay. My name is DreTavious. I'm an inspirational speaker. Specialize in speaking to students about social emotional learning and anti-bullying. I also have a podcast that's centered around education to provide a safe place for educators.
That's dope. I didn't know your podcast was centered around education.
Yeah, it's centered around educators.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
That's dope.
Yeah, it's centered around educators.
Okay. So now we're... Okay. Why education?
Because, I feel like education and community, they go hand in hand together. So because I have a passion to educate young people and because I want to see them become successful, a lot of the kids, they're in the school system. So I just figured that, okay, what can I provide for teachers that's going to get them pumped up, ready to teach the students through this pandemic? I said, well, let me just start a podcast that's going to provide a safe place for educators to kind of vent, because there's a lot of things going on with education right now. So I said, let's get the podcast going. That's going to give them an opportunity to not only provide strategies, but to just kind of let out whatever they're dealing with, So
That's dope, man. Because one, you're a black man speaking to educators. Two, you've worked in education, so it's not like you don't know about it. Because there's some people who have these podcasts out here who just speak from quote unquote experience of what they've kind of just seen. But you've not only just seen it, but you've actually put the work in by being in the classrooms, by seeing what teachers experience, by seeing what students experience.
Right.
And I applaud you for that, because nowadays we're finding that a lot of people, they're just going off of hearsay and putting it back out to the world, which is not good. You do a lot of harm and damage that way, but you're actually immersing yourself in the culture of education, in the culture of teaching, in the culture of children, and trying to make it, not trying, but you're making an actual impact and difference. So for you to have that podcast, that focuses on education as a black man, it's tremendously needed. It's needed all the way across the board, man. So my encouragement to you right now is just to keep going. Really keep going, man.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
No doubt, man, because you think about it, there's not a lot of black men in education.
It's not.
My first African-American male teacher, I did not get until sophomore-ish. I was like a sophomore, junior when I transferred into my college. I was like right in between. So I say my sophomore year of college, my first time having a black male teacher.
Sophomore year in college? Wow.
And mind you, I went to a 2-year college beforehand.
Wow.
And I've had my first African-American woman was in the 3rd or 4th grade. Her name was Miss Williams.
Okay.
And middle school, I had some African-American lady teachers. High school, same thing. And then to college, my first. So we're hoping that the trajectory can change, but I know it's hard for men to get into teaching because of the pay.
Yeah, that's one of them.
And we like to be breadwinners nowadays.
Right.
But yeah, let's talk about your passion for education.
Okay, let's do it.
What are you most passionate about when it comes to education?
Man, I'm passionate about the most thing that excites me about education is when I am able to go into a classroom and educate students. And I'm really big on educating students about character development, social emotional learning. That's not like academics. I'm an advocate for academics, but I can't say that academics just really excite me, but I think what I'm most passionate about is being able to go in and just educate the students, you know, and tell like components of my story, like when they're going through tough times, or I see a student that's misbehaving and they're trying to be a class clown, or they're looking to seek attention, and that's my opportunity to not only work with them, but to share my life with them and pour into them and say, hey, look, I can relate to how you feel, but you can get through this, you know, academically and emotionally. So that's what really excites me more than anything.
Word. So, excuse me, being a black male in education, what inspired you to say, because there's tons of fields that you could have gotten into.
Right.
You could have gone into business. You could have gone into entrepreneurship, which you kind of have a taste for already, of course. You could have gone into engineering, lawyer, doctor. But you as a black man decided, you know what, I'm going to do education. Why?
That's interesting. I have a personal story I have a personal story as to why I'm striving to, you know, like really get into the school system. And it's because a lot of trauma that I dealt with was in school. Like a lot of the bullying, you know, and being so left behind. Like it took me 8 times to pass my graduation test before I can even graduate high school. And so it was like those students who don't have any hope, who are not optimistic about education. I'm like, man, I want to get in and be involved so that those students don't feel left behind, or those students that's reading below grade level, or that finds it challenging to do math. I want to be that light for them. You know what I mean? And to see them get expired, I'm like, oh man, that's a job well done. I feel like in education, I can get into that. I can do that. That can excite me every day. Education can excite me, even with the pay not being as rewarding. That excites me. That makes my day. So
what you're saying is that regardless of what the field pays,
right,
you will remain constant in this field.
I will say this. I can remain constant, but there's ways to make more money within that field. Like, for example, if you decide to become a teacher, I mean, you might start off at, depending on the district, $30,000, $40,000 a year. But if you become a school psychologist, that's still in the education system, you're looking at about $80,000 to 6 figures a year. Or if you become a principal, or even a superintendent pays, depending on the district, you can get paid almost $600,000.
What?
You know? Yeah. So a lot of people don't know that.
As a superintendent,
yes,
you can make $600K.
I do a lot of research.
You do.
I do a lot of research on the salary, because a lot of people think that people in education don't get paid. It's the teachers that don't get paid, but people in education get paid for sure.
Really?
Yeah, man. I looked up the president of Georgia State. He's making $930,000.
Oh, yeah, I know on the collegiate level you get paid.
Yeah.
Well, some spaces on the collegiate level you get paid.
Yeah, you do. Yeah. And even like superintendents, they get paid. The one in Clayton County, I think his is projected like $300,000. Wow. You know, so it's really about, you know, it's really about knowing what positions that will pay you well, and you can turn that to streams of income from that. Like if you are a principal, you can start your own coaching program to coach other principals, become a speaker, write your own books, the whole nine. So, you know, I just don't look at it as, this is how much I'm going to get paid. Like, I don't limit myself to that, because I know there's more opportunities to get paid within education. You see what I'm saying? So.
Wow. Because you had posted on Instagram on your stories. What was that position you posted?
I think it was like a Texas school psychologist.
Yeah, and I'm like, the salary was a part-time job.
Right.
Making 6 figures in Texas.
Right.
And it wasn't like no $100K. It was like 100 and like what,
43.
Yeah, 140 something K for part-time work as a school psychologist.
Yeah.
That's wild to me.
Yeah. It is, man. It is, man. It's money to be made in education, man. I just feel like teachers, they don't get paid enough.
Right.
But I feel like people have to stop looking at just the teaching position, because there's so much more that you can do in education and get paid a decent amount of money. Now, of course, I mean, I'm pretty sure people would like to see more than 6 figures, but that's the average goal that most people aim for, is I hear is 6 figures. And you can make that leading a school, being a principal.
Right, right.
So
before we dive any deeper in this education and this salary piece, of course, what was your life like in education, as far as in school and stuff like that, from K to 12? Let's walk through that journey.
Like, how was my own personal experience?
Yeah, your personal experience, because some people, they don't have, like, I didn't have the best elementary experience. I didn't have like the best middle experience. In high school, I really didn't have a great experience in education until maybe like my 10th, 9th, maybe to like high school, because like elementary school, I was bullied a little bit and trying to figure it out. Middle school, I was still being bullied and picked at and talked about. And I was like doing like all types of like odd things to make friends. Like,
right,
a friend would have a party and I would, say, hey man, here's some snacks or something, man, if I get an invite to the party. Just to fit in. I never really fit in certain spaces. Now, as an older male, now I'm like, okay, now I see why I didn't fit in.
right.
But at that time as a child, you just want to fit in, because at home, I feel like I didn't fit in at home. School, I feel like I don't fit in at school. And like, dang, like, where can I find my space? So what for you in education, as growing up, where did you find your space? And prior to finding your space, what was it like?
In terms of finding my space?
Yeah.
I guess what you mean by that is, like, what got me going in terms
What got you going, but what was it like for you? Like I said, for me, it was bullying. I was a smart kid.
Right.
Always made great grades. But on the social side of things, it wasn't the best.
The best.
Socially, what was it like for you? Educationally, what was it like for you?
Man, I mentioned about, like, most of the time, special education. I remember when I was in first grade, and I remember I asked the teacher a question in class, and all the students started laughing at me. They started calling me names, picking on me, harassing me at that very moment. And then I stopped asking questions in class. I just said, I'm not going to ask questions no more, because I am what they say I am. I am dumb. I am stupid. And I don't even deserve to get an education. At this point, I'm just here just to say I'm present, but I'm not here mentally. You know what I mean? And so when the teacher realized that there was a learning gap, then that's when they got the special education department involved, and they started running tests on me. And they realized that I was in 5th grade, but I didn't know how to do simple division or simple math. And so I held on to that experience for so long, and then realizing in middle school that it's okay for me to not be reading on reading level and doing exceptionally well academically, because that's not even glorified in my community where I come from. But it wasn't until I got to high school and I realized I had to pass a standardized test to graduate, and I wanted to make my mom happy, so I was willing to do what it took. So it took me 8 times to pass my test, and I realized, like, dang, I can, this is my lane. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. But it took so many times because I wasn't taking education serious, but I wasn't taking education serious because I was so afraid to ask questions. It's not that I was lazy. It was more so of the fear of, if I ask questions,
what would I look like?
Right, in front of the other kids. I'm like, nah, you're not going to call me dumb and stupid again. I'm just going to sit here and pretend like I know what's going on. But when it came to that test, I was like, I didn't care at that point, because I wanted to graduate high school. So
we have a lot in common, man.
Really?
I too I was in special education in middle school.
Oh, okay.
For mathematics.
Math?
Yeah,
oh, wow.
I struggled, and I had to they took me to some room. We took some tests, and they realized that there's a need for me in the area of mathematics. So I got extra time on my test. I got to use a calculator on my test.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah,
I can relate.
And but the thing about my experience was that people gravitated me for that reason. because I had the extra time. I had the calculator and the test. So it was like, oh, let's get cool with this guy because he can get us the seriously. He can get us the answer because he has a calculator. So it's like, okay, but I can punch it in, figure it out. When they have to do the equations on paper and all stuff like that. So again, I was like, oh, well, I'm finally making friends, so I'm cool with this. But the beauty in that whole experience was that I was able to go to Disney World because at my school they took this small group of kids to Disney World, and that was the first time I flew on a plane in the 7th grade.
Nice.
That was the first time. So it's like, there's beauty in all of these experiences that we go through.
Right.
And when did you find the beauty outside of high school? Like, when did you find the beauty of your personal experience and what you've gone through?
It wasn't until after my mother passed. When I got the news that she passed, of course, I went through a phase of depression, suicidal thoughts, and really just not wanting to be here. But I found the beauty of what I was going through. It's funny after she passed because I realized that I had to grow up and really become a man because, to be honest, my mom, she babied me. She really sheltered me and she really babied me. And it wasn't until then I said, wow, this is why I went through what I went through so that I can inspire others. Because with that pain, I just started volunteering at Boys and Girls Club, nonprofit organizations. Anybody that was willing to let me come in and speak to their kids, I was like, oh, let's go. And I would just speak from the heart because at that time I was really dealing with a lot of depression. But at the same time, it was strange because I was like, wow, there's beauty in the struggle because I was able to get a lot of life lessons from it, and it just made me stronger as an individual.
So dealing with your mom's passing, how did that affect you? Well, before your mom's passing, send my condolences to you.
Oh, most definitely. Appreciate it, man.
But what was life like with mom when she was here in the physical presence?
Yeah, my mom was, I feel like still is, she's my best friend. My mom was very quiet, but anytime I was having a bad day, when I was going through bullying or anytime that, I would just tell her about how my day was at football practice. One of the best things that she would do was just listen. And so, the fact that she was able to listen made our bond a lot stronger. So we were, to me, we were really close. And I always wanted to buy her lunch, but she passed away before I could even do that. So that was one of the things that's how life was with me and my mom,
So what was life like growing up in the household?
My mom didn't really work that much. She didn't start working till I would say she didn't start working really till I was in middle school. So it was mainly my dad that was the main provider. Yeah. So that's how it was in the household. But even then, I felt like all of us as siblings, we kind of had to stick together and stay close together. So it had its good times and its bad times. I can say that for sure.
So how many siblings are in the household?
It was 7 of us at that time. It was when we were staying at a 2-bedroom apartment. It was about 7 of us.
A 2-bedroom apartment, 7 people.
Yeah, that's a lot, right?
How?
I didn't like it.
I bet not.
I did not like it. I love when I have my own room. I love it. Yeah. But I didn't like it. It was, it was just. We were always arguing as siblings. We looked out for each other. But at the same time, even as a kid, I knew that life had to be better than what I was experiencing. So, like I said, it was okay. But at the same time, I didn't like it. We got creative and played games with each other all the time, and we got in trouble with each other all the time. But hey,
So what was the living arrangement like? So you got 2 bedrooms. I'm sure your parents have a bedroom to themselves.
Right.
And then there's 7 kids or 7 of y'all in one house?
It's 7 kids. Yeah, 7 of us. It's 7 of us in all, yeah.
So 7 including your parents? Or 7 kids?
7 kids.
So there's 9 people living in a 2-bedroom apartment.
Right.
Golly.
Yeah, it was crazy,
So
man.
what's the like? Where are you sleeping at? Where you? Cause where do you fall in all of this?
I mean, I don't even know how we did. We had a bump bed. So all of us was sleeping like at the top, at the bottom. I think there was times where I was sleeping on the floor. But that's how it worked. Like we just kind of made it work. I mean, we had to. I mean, we were kids, so we just kind of had to make work with what we had. But I mean, eventually things got a little bit better for us once my mom started working and we moved into a bigger house and there was more space, but it was still, I mean, 7 people staying in one bedroom, like that wasn't a move, no.
So y'all all in the one bedroom. So you get the full size bunk bed,
But
and then at the top is a twin, right?
yeah.
Or you
yeah.
had the full size on top.
No, it was twin. I think it was a twin.
Because I know the bunk bed, typically they like slant from the bottom, like it's a full size at the bottom. The bunk bed that I had was a full at the bottom and a twin at the top.
And I think that's how it was for us too. I think the bottom was the full. I mean, yeah, the bottom was a full and it was a twin at the top. And I think I had a baby. My baby, well, she was a baby at the time. My sister, she was sleeping with my parents.
Okay.
I think most of the time. So maybe say 6 of us. But
That's still tight though.
Half of the time, my oldest brother and oldest sister, they were never there, and I'm pretty sure that's why they weren't there.
Yeah,
they were probably somewhere at their friend's house. So
got you. Now, where are you originally from?
I'm from Atlanta.
Really?
Yeah, originally born in Atlanta.
Where were you born at? What hospital?
Grady. I'm Atlanta. I'm from Grady, man. From Grady. Yeah, from Grady.
Got you.
I grew up, well, to be more specific, I grew up on the west side of Atlanta.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't really
like
talk
the
about
West End area.
No, like west side, like Bankhead.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't really say it much, but
Why not?
Just because I don't know, because people put too much hype to it. I don't know.
So so the hype of Bankhead ain't what everybody.
No,
I'm sure it is.
It is. It's crazy for sure, but I mean, I don't know. I feel like they say it with so much pride, and I don't know. I guess it's like they boast about like, oh, I'm from this hood. I'm like, I mean, okay, whatever. I mean, it's just a normal. I mean, it's a hood, but I don't know. I mean, if people ask, I'll tell them, but I just don't go around saying I'm from the hood. It's not something
that you want to embody as an individual.
Right. Like, that's just not who I am as a person. But if people ask me, yeah, I'll say it. So.
Got you. So, 7 kids, 1 of 7, mom and dad there. What's your relationship like with your dad? I know you say your mom's like your best friend, but what's the relationship like with dad?
So my dad was, like I said, he was there, but there was times and moments where he wasn't staying with us, and he would make sure that things were taken care of financially, but I just feel like he wasn't there physically enough for us to kind of build like a strong bond. And it wasn't until my mother passed that we got a little bit closer. Like, we just celebrated Father's Day together. So I would never say like he wasn't there or he's a deadbeat. Like, he definitely wasn't that. I just don't think like we just ever built like a really strong relationship with one another, because there were times where he just wasn't staying with us and it was just my mom. So that left that time and opportunity for me to be under my mom a lot more than it was for me to be under my dad, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So.
Got you. So what were some of the reasons like dad wasn't fully present?
I feel like he maybe wasn't there because, I mean, he had us when we were young, I mean, I think my oldest sister is like 35, 36. So they had to be in their early 20s, and I'm pretty sure, it was probably because he was young and he was out. Yeah.
Trying to figure out fatherhood and himself.
So I figured, I believe, that's why we just didn't really click that well. He had me at a young age. So, that's probably why, more than likely.
Got you. And you say you just celebrated Father's Day with your dad. What was that like?
It was good, man. We all got together as a family and we took my dad out for Father's Day, and I enjoy the conversations that I have with him. I used to have a lot of revenge towards him.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to be very angry, but I eventually forgave him because I said, what justice does that do? You know, I only have one parent left, so I might as well, you know, make the best of it.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not like, oh, I don't want to talk to you or anything. We have conversations, and, you know, Father's Day was just, it was a good experience, you know?
Yeah. So what is it like, you know, now that you all have built this relationship back up and it's to a place to your liking? Would you say?
Yeah, to my liking. I would say that.
What does it feel like now versus as a child?
What does it feel like now versus as a child? It feels different because I look up to him as a father and as an example, but now it's like, I guess I don't have to ask him for necessarily anything or want for anything because, I mean, the things that I want, I just go out and I just go work for it. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I feel like it's a little different now. You know, I'm not afraid to talk to him about certain things or ask him advice on certain things if I do decide to ask him for advice, you know. Yeah. So mm-hmm. I feel a lot more comfortable around him now because we have conversations and I see him a lot. And at one point in time when I was an adult, when I came back from college, I actually stayed with him for about 2 years before I moved out and got my own spot. Gotcha. So we were even able to get a little bit closer then. Mm-hmm. So
after you guys gotten closer, have you ever asked him like any like those tough questions that you've always like been scared to ask, but it's like right. I don't know how to ask you. I don't know if I ask this question, what would it bring about? Like, how was that conversation?
Yeah, I've asked him some tough questions. You know, after my mom passed, you know, I started asking questions like, you know, why weren't you there? You know, as much as I would have liked to have seen you, and you know, why did this happen with mom, and why did you go out and do this and that, you know? Mm-hmm. And a lot of the answers he was saying because he was young and he was just trying to basically figure out fatherhood. Yeah. So I definitely had those tough conversations with him at 20 years, about 19, 20, probably like 21.
Because you're how old now?
I'm 27 now.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and I remember my brother was like, dang, man, you asked those questions? I was like, yeah, I want to know. I'm curious.
Yeah.
I'm just curious to know. So, yeah, I definitely had those tough conversations with me. It needed to be had. Yeah. Because I had a lot of resentment towards him. Mm-hmm. So.
And having this conversation, did you, like, what was the healing that you experienced?
Man, there was a lot of healing in it because the fact that I know the truth now and I was able to hear it from him, it made me feel better as an individual, and it allowed me to want to get more closer to him. I needed that closure because I've always had all these questions in my head, but it was no answers. And when I would ask my mom, she used to get very upset, like angry, like she did not want to talk about it. She didn't want to have anything to deal with it. So, you know, having that conversation with him, you know, he was pretty straightforward with the questions that I asked him. So it was a lot of healing that took place.
That's good, man.
But good stuff.
Good. Now that you're an adult now,
right,
and you're carrying your own throne and making your own throne, should I say, what do you do with your life now?
So right now, I'm currently engaged.
Congratulations.
So I've been engaged for about 3 months, and she is absolutely amazing. So right now, she's the one that actually inspired me to go back to school.
Word, okay.
To get my education, yeah, because at first I didn't want to continue. So she encouraged me to go back and finish that undergrad. And now I'm working on building my speaking business and really diving into contracting with like different schools, different organizations, and just really trying to get myself out there even more, you know. So that's where I stand right now in life, pretty much.
That's dope. So when it comes to going back, what are you going back to school for?
So education psychology, to be a school psychologist.
Now, what does it take to become an educational psychologist?
So to be a school psychologist, you have to first get the undergrad as in education psychology, and then you have to go back and get your master's. And then throughout your master's, I think I've done some research, like you do, like certain internships and different things like that. So, yeah, that's what it requires to be a school psychologist, pretty much in a nutshell.
Got you. And as a black male, what's the importance of having a black male school psychologist in the system?
Man, I think it's so important, man. You know, it's right now education is 2% of teachers. I can only imagine what that number would look like for school psychologists. I don't even want to know. But I think it's important, man, because school psychologists, they provide not just mental support, but they provide behavior support in the school system. And they're able to help these students that's dealing with a lot of trauma. Now, school psychologist doesn't just deal with the mental aspect and the behavior aspect, but they also do a lot of testing and data. But they play a good instrument in the school, because if they're utilized to help the kids with a lot of trauma, that can increase the students to do better academically if they know that somebody cares about them. You know, so
right.
I think a school psychologist, man, in the school system is very, very important.
Now, did you always want to be a school?
No, man, this was very recent.
Really?
I wanted to step into the mental aspect of things. Yeah, very recent.
So
like a month recent.
What made you transition?
Well, the biggest thing was, being in my I was in my elementary ed program. I realized how it's very academic driven, right? So you're teaching the students, on elementary level, your 5 core: math, science, social studies, reading, language arts. And I did a little internship at the school, and I realized that I want to work with kids more on that character development, emotional side. Like, I really want to know what's going on with you. Why aren't you, performing well? What's some trauma that you're dealing with? I want to be there to help in that aspect. And teachers do help in that aspect, but the mass majority of the time, they're spending time helping them academically and to prepare them for a test. But you do help them emotionally, but that's not the main objective. The main objective is to get them prepared to take a test.
Gotcha.
And that's just like I said, academics, I do care about it, but it doesn't excite me as much, as to work with kids emotionally and mentally. So,
do you feel you got a better connection with a school psychologist versus an actual professional? Because what you've experienced as a child in the educational level, and maybe had you had worked maybe more hands-on with a school psychologist, you feel like you could have thrived a little bit more in elementary and middle and stuff like that?
Yeah, I definitely do feel like that. I feel like if I had the emotional support on how to deal with some of the trauma that I was dealing with, I do feel like I would have been better equipped to be successful academically. Because, I can just recall growing up, you kind of had to suppress your feelings. And the saying is, black men don't cry. I used to hear that all the time. Like, you're not supposed to express your feelings. You're not really supposed to express your emotions. You're just supposed to suppress them as if they don't even matter.
Right.
And that's exactly what I did. I didn't really talk about my feelings and emotions like that. But had I had that support system, I feel like I would have been a lot better academically. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So
now that you've learned, would you say you've learned to actually express yourself better now?
Oh yeah, I still have my struggles. I've realized that in my relationship, but I will say I've gotten way, way better. Like sometimes I break down and I cry, and when I do cry, I'm not ashamed. Like, if I'm crying to a close friend, or if I get emotional about it, I don't shy away from crying, because it's okay to cry. There's nothing wrong with that. So yeah, I think I've gotten a lot better in that aspect.
What's your takes on therapy?
Say it again?
What are your takes on therapy?
Oh man, I'm a huge advocate for therapy, man. I've always heard, and I used to hear this saying that what goes on in this house stays in this house. And that is, to me, in my personal opinion, I think that's very toxic. I'm a big advocate, man, for therapy, because we deal with a lot of trauma, and it's a lot of unhealed trauma that people are dealing with, and they may not feel comfortable to talk to their friends or their family, but therapy, they'll be able to walk you through the healing process. Like last year was my first time seeing a therapist, and man, I cried in my first session, and it was like, yo, like, man, I love therapy. Like, it's hard, don't get me wrong, because you have to talk about your emotions and your feelings, and you have to get vulnerable and transparent so that it can actually work, you know. But man, it's so helpful because I feel like we all need therapy, man. Nobody's perfect, and sometimes therapists, they can point out issues before they even arise. They might, you know, and I'm like, wow, like that's pretty deep.
Yeah.
So I'm like, man, like I'm all for therapy, man. It's worth the investment.
What would you say to any black man who is not pro therapy?
For therapy. That's a good question. I say if they're not for therapy, they, at minimum, they need to at least have somebody that they can talk to and vent to and express their emotions to. Because just keeping those emotions inside, man, keeping those feelings inside is not healthy. And I don't know, like, if, you know, I know a lot of men, they tend to, when it comes to their emotions, they usually use sex. I don't know if they're using that as a void when they sleep with different women, or if alcohol, you know, or if it's weed, or if it's drugs, or whatever the case may be to fill that void. But I feel like running away from expressing your emotions and feelings is not the solution. I think we're naturally born to get those emotions and feelings out. So I say, man, they need to get with it. They need to get with it because it's the move, you know.
Yeah. Man, this is a very enlightening conversation, bro.
Yeah, man.
I appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate you too. Thank you, man.
No doubt, man. I'm gonna do a quick commercial real quick.
Okay.
And then I want you to close us out with a word of wisdom, word of power, and let people know where they can find you and how they can connect with you and all that good jazz. All right.
Okay. Cool.
This episode is sponsored by the Embolden Institute. It's a space where I send out daily messages of hope, encouragement, and affirmation. If you are somebody who's looking for, daily hope, if you're looking for daily affirmations, text me 404-476-6780. That's 404-476-6780. You can text me the word heal to that number or text me the word affirmation, and we will get you locked in. You will receive a message daily, every day, on the dot, 10 a.m. EST, on the dot, every day. 365 days a week. We do not take any days off. We're not stopping this thing because we are very purpose-driven when it comes to people being affirmed, and we're purpose-driven when it comes to people healing, and we want to be the catalyst to help you begin your healing journey. So text me 404-6780. Out, my good brother.
With a few words of encouragement, I want to say, if you have a dream and you have a goal, it does not matter how long it takes. If it takes 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, man, hold tight to that dream because eventually it will come into fruition. You guys can find me at the Schoolhouse Podcast on Instagram. And for my YouTube, you can just look under the Schoolhouse Podcast, and that's how you can find me.
Word. My brother, we appreciate you, man. It's another episode. We are out. Peace.